Broadcasting from the Symphony Studios in Marietta, Georgia, it's time for the Technology Harmony Podcast, brought to you by Symphony Technology Solutions. Tune in every week as we spotlight the very best minds in our industry. Now here are your hosts.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the 24th episode of the Technology Harmony Podcast, brought to you by Symphony Technology Solutions. I'm one of your hosts today, Katie Galley, and I am joined by my co-host, Trey Gaskins. How are you doing, Trey?
Katie, I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day. We're just talking about it. Really happy to not have some rain, get some sunshine. Good. Well, Trey, today in our Symphony studio with us, we're going to have a great conversation with the Vice President of Technology at Hoar Construction, Paul Walker. How are you doing, Paul?
Great. How are you this morning?
We're doing awesome. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your story with us today.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Well, we are too, Paul. And so just to get to know you and your background a little bit, can you tell us about your professional journey and how you got the job you have today?
So Paul Walker with Hoar Construction. My journey started, telling my age here a little bit too, 25 years ago, specifically with this company. My background is in engineering, electrical engineering. And, back in the late 90s, engineering was cool, but it was really not taking off like the technology or the IT world was. Just remember, for those who do remember Y2K and kind of what all that was supposed to bring to the world. So I kind of got into this arena around the 95, 96 time frame and saw a lot of opportunity to really contribute some of my talents and what I've learned in school. And especially as it relates to the construction and engineering world. Traditionally, AEC has kind of been one of the last industries to really have some true advantages or a lot of inefficiencies in this particular industry. And so from a technology standpoint, it's one of those things where I hoped, it was a gamble, that one day the technology will really catch up and really provide a lot of value. And fast forward to today, that's kind of where we are.
And so, Paul, what was it specifically about the construction industry and then now getting into technology that really piqued your interest enough to want to pursue it as a career?
Sure, absolutely. My father used to own a residential construction company. So as a kid, I remember going out to some of those job sites and probably not working. Some of the labor laws don't get them in trouble now, but working and understanding and really just kind of looking around and seeing how tough this is. I mean, it's a lot of hard work. And as I started going through the schooling process, I understood or wanted to find ways to make that better, specifically for my father and for my family and just for the industry in general. And so that's kind of which was my draw into the construction side of the house, just having some personal experience being out there on those job sites and just trying to find ways to make it better for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, growing up around it and having that exposure at a young age, that makes sense. Trey?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just Paul. For a lot of people know the company you're with, Hoar, but for those that don't, tell them what does Hoar specialize in and what are y'all kind of known for?
Absolutely. So Hoar Construction is an 80-year-old company based in Birmingham, Alabama, and we have job sites and offices throughout the country. Our specialty right now is really in the multifamily high-rise. We have, approximately 10 to 15 multi-story, 30-plus story high-rises going under construction around the country. But we also have a nice portfolio in the healthcare and also the retail, what's left of retail, and also in the healthcare industry. So we're very well diversified from a portfolio standpoint. And some of our clients range from Apple to Google, to Disney, and some of your more mainstream clients like Heinz and other commercial owners there.
Great. Well, we also share similar focus. We do a lot of multifamily work, also hospitality and some commercial work. Tell us the role that technology's played in, I guess, two sides of that topic. One is as the general contractor, how are y'all embracing technology? And then two, on the multifamily side of the house, Tell us about some of the technologies you're actually, curating and deploying, if you can.
Sure, absolutely. It's funny. We talk about technology or IT, if you will. You've got multiple avenues that you can kind of go down in regard to that. You've got your support and your infrastructure that kind of keeps the engine going. So, looking back 8 months from ago before COVID hit, we have all these systems in place to kind of keep things going if something happens. And COVID happened, and then we never skipped a beat, like most companies, where we were already had planned for this, and we had rolled out a lot of platforms to just help with that remote work scenario. So that's a piece of technology that I think people overlook sometimes, that you have to really plan, and from an infrastructure standpoint, to make sure you have the right backbone in place to keep the company going. From a project side standpoint, I oversee what's known as IT, CT, and VDC. So IT, your traditional information technology, CT, which stands for construction technology, and of course, VDC is our virtual design group, or in BIM terms. So I oversee those three divisions or departments within the technology division for Hoar Construction. Specifically, as it relates to the projects, is where our construction technology and our virtual design group comes into play, where we apply the BIM techniques and everything else. But also from a construction technology, that's where we get into the whole INT world, or some of the applications that we leverage to really to track our process and also our productivity, so we can make very smart decisions about things going forward. And an example of that would be we have a safety app, and safety is something that's dear and near to us, and we focus on every single day, like most people do, but we measure that. But through some of these safety technologies that we've deployed, we can almost predict when things are going to happen based off of the crew that's working on a particular day of the week, based off some of the analytics that we've captured and analyzed. So it's pretty amazing what you can do and leverage the technology tools for today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. The safety app you're talking about, just can you dig a little deeper into actually how that works and how it gives you the business intelligence to help prevent things?
Sure, absolutely. It's an app that's deployed to a platform called Procore, and that's kind of how we capture the information. But then once we capture the information, we pull it back in-house into our warehouse, and then we analyze it, and then we present that back out to the leadership so they can see the trends, and we can start to analyze specific teams or projects or quarters of the year or time of the month when we see things happening. So fast forwarding 12 months from now, we can say, hey, well, this particular team might have this issue in this part of the country based on this particular climate environment. So we need to get ahead of that and plan for that so we don't have these issues. So it's pretty amazing. And that's something that we deployed about 2 years ago.
Awesome. Awesome. How about from an Internet of Things standpoint? What are some of the IoT technologies you're seeing in the mixed use and multifamily communities?
Well, there's a ton of them, as you very well know, that's out there, from just different sensors where you can look at occupancy things. There's different sensors that we've used in the past as we are pouring concrete, we can kind of check the condition of that, and we can tell exactly how that process is going. And also when we need to make corrections from concrete flatness standpoint. I mean, there's a slew of things like that that's available. As you well know, it's something's new popping up all the time, and it's a mountain of data that you have to go through and analyze, and you have to make sure you have the right systems in place to be able to process so it's meaningful for the organization. And I think a lot of people run to all of those IoT devices, but kind of going back to that infrastructure side, you've got to have those mature platforms in order to ingest those and understand them so you can make sense of what those devices are telling you.
Right. Okay. How about what are some of the things that technology-wise that keep you up at night?
Well, I think everyone here on this podcast, we all receive spam and phishing attempts. So security is one that's always on the top of my mind. And every day I see new attempts, very mature attempts to fool people into doing things that they know better, but they think that it's authentic. So why not do it? And so we have a lot of social awareness, a lot of training around these phishing attempts. And we built a pretty significant security infrastructure on top of the training it's a layer approach, right? If the more layers you have in place, the more protection you have as it relates to these type of things. But I read the news every single day like everyone else, and you see all these different ransomware events that's happening around the country. And I've had friends in the industry who's gone through those. So those are the type of things that one of the things that keeps me up at night, but also just a change in pace of technology, because it's something that is cool and new and provides a lot of value today. In 2 months, then there's something new that, of course, has a price tag, and that we've got to find a way to justify and implement into our process if we decide to go down that route. So it's a complicated job, but I love every day of it.
Yeah.
And so, Paul, like you're saying with the advances in technology and trying to stay ahead of it, and then too with the introduction of COVID and kind of the way that technology has seemed to accelerate in the last couple of months specifically. But with Hoar, looking forward, how do you guys stay ahead of that trend, knowing that in 2 months, 3 months, a piece of technology might be outdated?
Right. We take an approach to where we're not on the bleeding edge. We kind of let systems mature. There's a video analytics tool out there that's been around for a number of years. And it's one of those things to where when it first hit the market, it was great. It was exciting. You can do so much with it, the promise of what it can do there. But we waited 2 or 3 years before we fully investigated it for that technology to mature, not only from a technology standpoint, but quite frankly, from a cost standpoint, because now you have more competing products that kind of levels that particular price concept of it, and now is more manageable for everyone. So we're kind of right there in the middle of between bleeding and leading, but we have a team of people that focuses on those technologies and who came really out of the operation group, not so much out of the technology group. Because for me, it's important to understand that my team understands how we operate and the processes that we have in place, not just chasing those tools that are out there without the understanding of how we're going to get them implemented.
Got it. Well, Paul, go ahead, Trey.
To say, Paul, from a low voltage standpoint, what are some of the challenges and things that you try to think about implementing low voltage into your multifamily communities? Not so much of a challenge. It's one of those things. How much more can we do with low voltage as it relates to some of these IoT sensors? You think of some of these multifamily structures that are going in place and all the smart technologies that are being deployed, from thermostats to motorized blinds and all these type of things, and just the cable infrastructure or low voltage infrastructure that has to go in place with that. I spent some time up in Redmond at Microsoft campus several years ago and kind of learned about their 88-acre initiative as it relates to smart buildings and newer technologies and how you can leverage basic infrastructure, but to do more to get the extent of those older buildings to make them essentially more efficient. And that's where the low voltage piece comes into place, because you leverage that infrastructure to connect all those dots and all those sensors and all those devices, so you can gather all that information and then run it back through your warehouse and make some intelligent decisions to where almost the building is alive, if you will, and can help you manage that process better. Gotcha. Okay.
Well, Paul, so now looking forward, of course, you can look back on the last couple of months and how technology has advanced, but looking forward for you specifically, where do you see technology going?
That's a great question. And I think if we had the answer to that question, we probably would not just be sitting here talking about it, right? That's a great question. I see more and more people, of course, leveraging the cloud, because there's fundamentally so much more you can do with the cloud than you can do on-prem. So for those companies that have not fully migrated to the cloud, I see a lot of people going through that process and leveraging the AWS and Azure's platforms of the world to get more analytics and predictive things out of that platform. But I also see those IoT devices really working smarter and better to where you can leverage more information. I mean, I think we're still in the infancy of some of these particular devices and technologies. And that's kind of what I'm really excited about the future, where all these things start to compound and work together, in a very easy manner. Right now, and I think we all will agree, we have to find ways to integrate and make those point solutions work. And my hope is one day we get to a point to where out of the box, they just naturally do that, and without having to do a lot of custom programming and those type of things.
Yeah, that would be pretty amazing.
Paul, are there any new technologies that, again, in a post-COVID world that y'all are thinking more and more about? Like an example that comes to mind is a lot of communities are trying to figure out, like, an access control. How do they make things more touchless, where people aren't having to physically touch things to make things happen? Any of those examples jump out at you?
Not exactly. I mean, we're very familiar with the access control and security cams and using those algorithms from what we capture from video to do different things. So really nothing earth shattering. I mean, I think we're always thinking about what we can do to leverage what we have, to be a little bit smarter about our approach to, of course, the operation in our business. But nothing that really jumps out of me from a post-COVID world, if you will. Once again, I think the mature companies, we've kind of planned for this. In the doomsday scenario, if this particular building disappears, what happens? Or if the internet goes down, what happens? And so from a contingency standpoint, these are all things that we've worked on for the last several years, really for the last 10 years. Just having a fully redundant system and leveraging the cloud for different operations. So COVID has had a profound effect on, I guess, us working together in the same building, but it really hasn't interrupted our process on what we do and our ability to complete a particular project or to execute a product.
Wow. Well, Trey, do you have any closing questions for Paul?
Yeah, it was great. It was really helpful, and I can kind of see the forward thinking and investment in technology that y'all have made in the past. Seems like it's paid off, and again, y'all are a leader for a reason. And the the comments you've made regarding your foresight into technology seems to make a lot of sense. I think a lot of people will probably envious of the position that y'all are in.
Well, it comes to it's not easy, but I think you just have to really embrace it. One thing that we always face, and I think everyone faces to a degree, is just the change management side of the house as it relates to these new technologies and introducing these new products into a current process or a workflow. And we just have to embrace that change. And it makes sense because we understand, like most companies, the profound impact by implementing a new stack of technology or system can have to make everyone more efficient and more effective by going down this path. And so the change management piece is one that I was just really, hopefully everyone will embrace more post-COVID, because without that, for those who had just rolled out a platforms like Teams or Zoom or anything like that, it's kind of how you operate today, and you had to embrace that whether you liked it or not. And so the same thing can be applied to these other technologies as it relates to construction. Embrace those technologies and truly use it for what they're meant to do, and keep testing and see what you can do further with them.
And I guess, this world, we were kind of, like you said, you had to, some companies were forced into learning how to use Zoom and Teams, but embracing the change is definitely easier said than done. Unless you're kind of prompted into that space.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's my goal, is just to continue to foster and get better at the change management process, because we don't have all the answers for things. And I think, like everyone, we're all on a journey, but we're trying to figure out how we can mitigate that and make it better for everyone going through this process.
Absolutely. Well, Paul, if somebody wanted to learn more about you and Hoar, where might they do that?
Absolutely. You can always email me directly at pwalker@hoar.com. And to learn more about the company, simply go to HOAR or hoar.com. Visit our website, and you can learn all about our locations and our offices and all the services that we provide.
Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest and their company, check out the show notes for the relevant links. If you would like to learn more about us here at Symphony, of course, subscribe to our podcast on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook at Symphony Technology Solutions and on Instagram at Symphony Tech Solutions. Here at Symphony, our ultimate goal is to make harmonious music out of all the technological noise. And we hope today's episode helped in doing just that. See you next time.